Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Clinic Gym Radio. I am your host, Dr. Josh Satterlee, and I'm joined today by Dr. Brent Kesler. Brent, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Dr. Josh. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, my pleasure. Now, Brent, you are one interesting cat. Here you are, lakeside in your vacation home for the summer, and yet you are also a chiropractor and also a guy who kind of broke out and understands finances. How the heck did you transition from hands-on care to, what would you say, hands in pocket care? I don't know. How does this go?
Yeah, no, great question. So anyway, you are right, Dr. Josh. I am a chiropractor. I own 5 clinics in the Kansas City area. I went to actually Logan Chiropractic College in St. Louis. And after I got out of school, we were trying to decide, the location to go because I was raised in Florida. My wife was raised in Quincy, Illinois. So after we got out, we decided, okay, well, let's go to the Kansas City area, because she had family over there. So that's why we moved to the Kansas City area. And that was back in the early 2000s, I guess it was, like 2001. Moved over there and opened up the first practice and then opened up another one. And then I said, wow, this associate thing is pretty cool, having an associate doc, just as long as they share your vision. And again, I know a lot of associate relationships don't work out very well, but I was fortunate enough to make that work pretty good. And we actually had 5 clinics in the Kansas City area. And actually, I sold my last one in 2017. I have not been practicing in the office myself since about 2008 or 2009. I've been teaching this concept, that I'm going to talk about today, but I had docs in the clinic that worked. And
so most of the hands-on care you deliver now is Thanksgiving dinner when your uncle says, oh, Brent, my back's just killing me, man. You got to do something. And
yeah, or about, when you're in the bar and around about 1:30 in the morning, someone says, hey, I got a stiff neck. Can you adjust me? And I say, no, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's the greatest thing when you say I'm a chiropractor. Half the people go, oh, I've never been to one. The other half are like, oh, will you adjust me here? I'm like,
absolutely.
Does this happen with accountants? Like, would you do my taxes real quick?
Yeah, real quick. Or like, anyway, how about the people that say, hey, so can you show me how to do that so I can do it on my wife? So I can go home and adjust her. I said, sure, let's just go through it for 15 minutes and you'll have it down pat. You'll be able to do it every time, right?
Yeah. And here we are going to, years and years of training, and we're still worried about, the perception of stroke in patients. And this guy's like, let me just do it for 1 minute worth of training and throw it at my wife. Like, okay, well, you must not like your wife then. That's the explanation. That's the only one that makes sense. Anyways.
That's right. Absolutely.
Enough chiropractic talk. The reason I wanted to have you on is you made a transition from, obviously a thriving business, 5 clinics, bunch of folks working for you. And along the way, you kind of found the, what do they call that? The Rosetta Stone, right? You discovered this thing that kind of translated into how money is made, how money is built, or wealth is built, how money kind of comes into your life. And you were sharing right before we hit record that totally rattled your cage, man. It just threw you off balance and you totally dug it. So take us through the journey to that point.
Yeah, well, anyway, just without getting too deep into the weeds, really, I was at a chiropractic conference when I heard this information that I teach called the infinite banking concept, right? So that's really the method that I teach. And I was actually at a chiropractic conference back in 2006. So I was
you were still deep into running chiropractic clinics.
Oh, absolutely right. 2006. Yeah, I was all in. I was right. So I was at this conference to build wealth, to build my practice, right? To start where I was able to build the business. Because as you know, Dr. Josh, they teach you in chiropractic school how to treat patients and take care of them, but they don't teach you how to run a business. Through all 10 trimesters or 12 quarters, however you went through chiropractic school. So how many hours did we actually get with someone teaching us how to run the business operations? Maybe 1 hour, 2 at the most. And the person that was teaching it was the one that failed in business. So they came to school to teach it, right?
It's the complete opposite of that guy saying, hey, in 2 minutes, show me how to adjust my wife's neck. And
exactly.
in school, they're like, in 2 minutes, we're going to show you how to run a practice with multiple employees, multiple people, advertising, marketing, fulfillment, keeping people happy, discharge, and keeping yourself out of hot water. Here's 1 hour that you really didn't pay attention to. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later.
Yeah, no. Yep, you're exactly right. And again, I had a chiropractic mentor going through a practice management mentor because I knew how to treat, but I didn't really know how to run the business, right? So anyway, I'm at this conference and I hear somebody talk about this concept, becoming your own banker. And I'm like, man, that is really, really cool, right? It just sounds really good. But however, it sounded too good to be true. And I'm sure you've seen things like that where you watch something and it looks really good, but it just sounds too good to be true. Well, that was where I was at. You know, it was just like, okay, it looks good, it makes sense, but it sounds too good to be true. So I heard that information in 2006. I left that chiropractic conference. I did nothing. I went back to my normal life, treating patients. I was running my office, this and that. So now I go back to another conference about 1.5 years, almost 2 years later. And about 8 or 10 of my chiropractic colleagues are now at this conference that were at the one previously a couple years earlier. And the only difference between them and me is they heard this concept the same time that I did, and they took action. And so like during this conference at a break or a lunch or something like that, a whole bunch of them came up to me and they said, Brent, isn't this banking concept the most incredible, the most powerful thing ever to build wealth? You know? And I was like, banking concept, I totally forgot about it, you know? And then after they started talking about it, then I kind of remembered. And I was like, oh yeah. But see, the only difference is they were doing it and I wasn't. So here is like 8 or 10 of my colleagues. They were throwing up all over me, telling me about this concept, how they were able to take their money. They were able to pay off their debt, pay down their student loans, pay their overhead, keep control of their money, all without working harder, changing their cash flow, taking any additional risk or losing control, all by simply adding one simple step in their financial life. So I thought to myself, okay, there has to be something to this, this concept, this method. There's no way 8 or 10 of my colleagues are lying to me, right? Maybe 1 or 2, but not 8 or 10. So I went home and I told my wife, I said, honey, we have to start implementing this concept in our life. And it was February of 2008 is exactly when it was. And anyway, Doc, I was dying.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, I was actually at that time, I was $984,711 in debt. The reason I know it to the dollar is because to start this concept, I kind of needed to know where I was financially. So I was almost $1 million of debt. Now, again, at the time I was in Kansas City, I now live in Florida, but at the time I was in Kansas City, and I know it seems like that's a lot of debt, $1 million. I know if you live in California, that buys you a really small house, but in Kansas, it buys you a lot, $1 million. Well, anyway, so how was I in that debt? Well, I had my student loans from chiropractic school. I had my offices. I had the house that I lived in. I also had a house on the lake. And if you have a house on the lake, you have to have a boat and a wave runner, right? So you can't have a house on the lake.
It's required. It's required.
I'm also an airplane pilot. So as an airplane pilot, I had to have my own airplane. So it didn't take me a lot to become $1 million in debt. Well, I was able to put this concept into place, and I was able to pay that debt off in 39 months, 3 years and 3 months. I never had to work any harder, change my cash flow, take any additional risk, or lose control. All I did, Dr. Josh, is I added one step in my financial life. That's it. I added one step, and it drastically changed my financial life. So I started to become pretty passionate about this. And in the chiropractic industry, this chiropractic mentor that I had, he had a coaching and consulting business. And I was doing really well in my clinic. And he came to me one day and he said, Brent, he said, I have all of these members that I'm consulting. I only have so much time in a day. So can you help me coach some of these members? Now, remember, this is not on the clinical side of things. I don't care if you're, as far as technique, it has nothing to do with technique. It doesn't matter if you treat upper cervical, diversified, if if you treat the old basic moon, the Logan basic toughness technique, so whatever it is that you practice, it had nothing to do with technique. It only had to do with implementing this concept and this system in chiropractic, right? As far as the chiropractic tools that he taught. Well, because I was using this banking concept in my own life, I started coaching these guys on how to build their clinic. So like in other words, how to get patients in the door and how to get them to stay, pay, and refer. So as I'm coaching them, I have to talk about money, right? Because a lot of us, even in the chiropractic field, any field, a dentist, a lawyer, an MD, I mean, a person that owns a business, a lot of people are really, really good at just knowing how to make money. But the thing that I've determined in our profession and a lot of other professions, we actually suck at keeping the money, right? I mean, we know how to make it, but we suck at keeping it. Well, now I understood how to keep the money through the concept. So as I'm coaching these guys on the practice building in their chiropractic, which really has nothing to do with keeping the money, but I had to share with them the things that I was doing in my life to keep the money, right? So I started to tell other people about this, and I really got passionate about it. And the guy that I started this concept with, right, just the first one that I heard about it from, he walked down, so I was at his office one day, and he walked downstairs, and he says, Brent, he said, I was looking through my records, and I see here that you've referred me 41 clients to this banking method, to this infinite banking method. And I said to him, well, Ray, you've never paid me a dime for any of those, right? And I kind of laughed about it. And he said, no, really, in all seriousness, he says, you're very passionate about this. You do it very good. He says, you should consider doing this. I said, do it? You mean teach it to others? He said, yeah. So that's what I did. I ended up and I went out and got my license. And now this is what I've been doing. That was back in March of 2012. I've been a customer of this concept since 2008. And so back in March of 2012, here we sit here in July of 2019. So about July of 2021. So again, about 9 years now, I've been teaching this concept, and this is all that I do. I eat, live, and breathe this stuff. So the thing that I really do, Josh, is I teach people how to build wealth through their own debts and expenses that they already have. And I'm not going to change your cash flow. We're not going to take any additional risk or lose control of our money. We're only going to add one simple step in your financial life. And that's what
I really wish that your passion came through. I mean, you were just so relaxed and monotone there for 5 minutes, Brent. I'm concerned that you're not into this, man. But all joking aside,
I'm a little down today. I'll get better the next time.
Yeah, tell your wife to stir up some coffee real quick. Let's get the afterburners going here.
That's right.
So all joking aside, so I'm here 9 years from when you kind of discovered this to now, and now you're fully teaching it. And, with all financial things, it's kind of like agriculture, right? The crops you plant early. I helped this guy one time plant a vineyard. And what's interesting about a vineyard in the world of finances, the first set of grapes you get are tiny. They're like the size of BBs. Yeah. And there's so much skin and so little juice that they have to sit for like 5 years. They have to mellow out for 5 years. And you will actually get better wine from your second and third year grapes before you ever get good wine from that first batch, which is kind of a crazy concept. And then it takes like 2 to 3 years to get your first set of grapes. So really, we sat on that thing for 7 years to get drinkable wine. Yeah. And it's often that way with finances, right? Like your first couple moves, you don't realize that they are producing, and then you get it refined and more refined. And maybe your third round produces more than your first did, and et cetera, et cetera. So What was the first time, I want people to kind of emotionally grab onto this idea. What was the first time that you saw changing in your personal finances? Because I know a lot of folks listening here, they have their own clinic. Obviously, they've got car payments, house payments, saving for kids in college, all these things that are all these financial pressures that I think that's just part of doing business in these days. You got your school loans, you got all those things. And sometimes it's hard to like, how do I say this? You're talking about the ability to fly to the moon, right?
Yeah.
And I want to talk about, hey, let's get a little Cessna slow plane and just like, hey, here's flight. And, see, you could fly around your neighborhood and then land and everything's okay. Now let's go further. And now let's put jets on it. And now those jets become rockets. And now we're going to go to the moon. You're on the moon, dude. You're an astronaut, right? Like, you have seen the surface of Mars. Going back, what was the first time you remember like achieving a little bit of flight or going, hey man, actually things are changing here. This is crazy.
Well, yeah. And again, just to kind of go back, I mean, yeah. So like I first heard about this concept in 2006, so 15 years ago, but I didn't believe it for 2 years. I thought it was too good to be true, right? I had to see somebody else do this before I said, okay, well, let me do this as well. Cause there's no way all these guys are lying to me. And then,
even in chiropractic, that would be a high number of charlatans,
Yeah, right. So anyway, then I implemented this system 2008, so a little over like 13 years ago, and I've been teaching it since 2012, so like 9 years ago. Well, I'll tell you, I was a little hesitant and I was a little skeptical even when I started this concept in my own life. I mean, I was just because I really wasn't sure, even though I knew and I trusted these colleagues, I still had, I would say my trust was low and my defenses were high, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was skeptical. And
that's the stuff that keeps you alive,
Yeah. But I'm telling you, once I implemented this concept in my life and I started to see how it was working with the debt and the expenses that I owed anyway, and how it was really working, I was like, man, this is really working good, right? And then I went a little bit more and it was working even better. And I would call my colleagues that I knew that were doing this, and I would say, hey, Doc, this is what I'm doing. Are you doing this? And they would say, yeah, Brent, this is what we told you about, right? So then as I started to see it and I just started, and again, as that debt, I was paying down that debt. And even if you don't have third-party debt, it was about recapturing and recycling the money that was going out to other people anyway, right? You're now not only buying a product and service and you get the product and service, but now you're recycling and recapturing that money where you get the product and service and you get the money back. And the more that I'm doing research on this is not a brand new concept. It's been around, this infinite banking concept, which was developed by a guy named R. Nelson Nash, okay, which actually we lost Nelson a couple years ago, back in 2019, in March of 2019 at age 87. But again, this concept has been around for over 200 years. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, the Barclays, this is all how they kept their wealth. This is how they built their wealth and kept their wealth inside of their families. So it's not a concept that's on trial. It's not being tested, right? It's been around for over 200 years. So all we're going to do is we're going to mimic and imitate exactly what the wealthy have been doing for 200 plus years, right? So I started to see that come together, and then I just started to do more and more and more of it, right? Because the way you can start doing it is you can start very little or you can start a lot, I mean, it's completely up to you. I mean, I have now, I've been doing this, teaching it for 9.5 years, right? I have over 3,700 clients in every state of the country. I bet 600 or 700 of them are chiropractors in every state of the country, right? And okay, so out of all of those people, out of all of those 3,700 people, I have a total of 91%. All right, so like maybe give or take a couple percent, but 91% of those clients that have been with me for a year or longer, they come back for more, meaning they're like, this is good, I want to do more. Now, the reason I tell you that, Josh, is because if this wasn't working for people, there's no way that 9 out of 10 would be coming back. Could you imagine owning a chiropractic clinic and 9 out of 10 patients that came through your door continue to follow through with a lifetime program of wellness or lifetime care of getting adjusted once a month or twice a month or whatever your plan was? Could you imagine a 90% retention rate from chiropractic patients? You would never need to get just another new patient because there's only so much time in the day that you can spend with them.
Yeah. Am I muted? No, I'm not muted. All right. No, I fully agree, man. Like if there's a level of trust that you must have overcome to get to that point where you're 9 out of 10, it's like, I owned a gym for a while, and if you can keep 9 out of 10 members all through the year, you're going to be doing well. It's just that means you're offering the right service, and quickly you'll know if you're not. But when you're talking about the concept of infinite banking, it does sound a little bit like, I mean, I'm sure everybody listening is like, yeah, dude, you found a way to fight gravity, right? Which is impossible. Walk us through like maybe the broad strokes of what we're talking about, because anytime you use the word infinity, unless you're what's his name, Buzz Lightyear, people are going to get suspicious, right?
Yeah.
So what is this concept basically? And it was funny when you were talking about like the Morgans, the Stanleys. I was like, oh yeah, there's banks named after all those people that you're talking about. The Chase family, all that, right? So, but going back, and I think actually the Wells family and the Fargo family it's two families that just like Morgan Stanley or something. But what is the concept of this banking or infinite banking?
Yeah, well, the concept is all driven by the book called it's a book by R. Nelson Nash it's actually called Becoming Your Own Banker. Okay, that's the book's name, Becoming.
And who was this cat? Like
Your Own Banker. Okay, so R. Nelson Nash. Okay, is again, he discovered this concept, and it was back in the 1980s, and so anyway, he sat there owing over $500,000 to creditors. And if you remember the 1980s, where interest rates were 21, 22%, high interest rate. And he found himself owing about $500,000 to these creditors. Now, anyway,
which would be in today's dollars, probably like 3.5 or something.
A lot more, right? And the interest rates, crazy interest rates. And anyway, so he was a man of prayer. He was a very spiritual man, and he talks about how he would kneel down on the side of his bed and he would pray to God. He would say, God, help me out of this financial nightmare I have gotten myself in. And he says, there's no one to blame. He got into this himself. He created this problem for himself. And he says, help me get out of this, because here I'm sitting here and I owe $500,000 at 20+% interest to these people. How in the hell do I ever break the bonds of financial slavery that I've got myself into, right?
Yeah.
So, and then he said, all of a sudden it came to him. He says, Nelson, the answer is right there in front of you. You have a way out. Now, the banking concept, it's driven. The product that we use is a whole life insurance policy in a mutual company that pays dividends. Now, I know a lot of your listeners probably just turned off right now when I said whole life insurance, because they're thinking they know everything there is to know about this vehicle. Well, let me assure you, you do not know everything there is to know about this product, because if you did, you would be implementing this in your life, right? So it's not any whole life policy. It's not a policy that you can go down and buy from your brother-in-law that sells life insurance. And the reason I say that is because all of us have a brother-in-law that sells life insurance. So no, it's not one of those policies. This is a specifically designed, specially engineered policy for high immediate cash value. And my definition of immediate is within 30 days. So essentially what you do, Josh, is you put money into this policy and you're going to start using that money immediately within 30 days to pay for the debts and the expenses that you're paying for anyway. So Nelson owed $500,000, but he had funded life insurance policies along the way. Well, Nelson didn't realize that he could go to these companies, okay, and he could borrow. He could borrow at a much, much lower interest rate, 5 to 8% at that time, even lower now. And he could borrow from the policy, not really from the policy, but by collaterally putting his policy up for collateral with the bank, with the insurance company, taking a loan from the general fund of the insurance company. So now he has all this debt that he owes at 20+%, but now he can get a loan at 5 to 8%. Does that make sense?
Which would be in today's dollars. I mean, because people don't realize 20%. That sounds like a crazy interest rate now. So if the current rate is 5%, like on a mortgage, you're saying you could borrow against it at 1 to 2%, like significantly less.
Absolutely right. Okay. Like 400% less.
Yeah.
Okay. You know? So again, that's where he discovered this concept and he started teaching it. And now, I mean, it's a concept that is like known a lot more than it was before. And as time goes on, it's even being known more and more, but still it's a fraction. I call it, it's right. So out of all the people in the world that know this, or just the United States, it's like the pimple on the elephant's behind. That's how many people really know about it. Because see, it's not what we've been taught about our money and our finances. All right. Because again, Josh, if you think about what did our parents and our grandparents teach us? They taught us to go to school, to get a good education. Let's get a good job. Let's work for the next 35 or 40 years, and then we'll live on our retirement, the pension, the 401k, the IRA, the qualified plan. Well, that's a bunch of crap. I talk to people every day that are taking a bloodbath in those vehicles, the IRA, the 401k, the qualified plan, because they're totally giving up control of their money to someone else. They have no control and they have no guarantee. So all we're going to do is we're going to put you in a vehicle. It's not an either or. It's not like I choose either I'm going to do this or do the banking concept. I'm going to buy real estate or do the banking concept. I'm going to do a 401k or the banking concept. It's not an either or. It's an and. It's an addition to what you're already doing. And when you run your money through the policy first, it totally changes your financial game. I mean, it completely drastically improves it because now what you're doing is you're going to keep that money inside of the family. You're going to recycle and recapture the dollars. And anyway, before we end today, I'm going to show your listeners how they can go to my website, www.themoneymultiplier.com, and watch my full presentation on this concept and on this method so you can see exactly how it works. It's not necessary to call me and talk to me about it. Go watch the information that I put out there first. And then when you watch it, you'll say, wow, that's either too good to be true, I don't believe it, or you're going to say, I need to know more about this. And then when you call me, let me turn you on to the hundreds of chiropractors, 2 of them, which we've already mentioned on the call before you started recording, that both of us didn't know that we knew, right? Yeah. That are practicing this.
Mutual friends, yeah.
Right. So anyway, I'll turn you on to hundreds of chiropractors. I mean, if you want other people in other professions, that's fine. But chiros that are using and implementing this in their life, and they have been for years.
Okay. So real quick, share your website one more time.
www.themoneymultiplier.com. So THE, the word money, the word multiplier.com. Themoneymultiplier.com. And then after you get to the website, go to the top of the homepage where it says resources, click on the resource button, and then click on the presentation button. And my full presentation, which is about an hour and 40 minutes, is on there. And it goes over, it has the downloadable examples. You can go through it as quick as you want, as slow as you want. And not only, Josh, can your listeners go there? But I also wrote this book called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. It's been out about 1.5 years now. It's called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. And I wrote it with one of my clients, Chris Noggle, which is very active in the real estate world because a lot of you guys, chiros, are in real estate investors too. Well, Chris has had a couple TV shows on HGTV, another one on House Hunters called Risky Builders. But Chris and I wrote this book. Chris has been my client for several years, and I will actually send the ebook to all of your listeners. All you do is send me an email, Brent, my first name, Brent at themoneymultiplier.com. I'll send you the ebook. If they really want a hard copy of the book, I think it's like $2.30 for shipping.
All right.
I'll ship it to you, but it's not necessary for the hard copy. You'll have the ebook.
Let me, why don't you take a breath?
I'm just getting fired up.
You might be the most passionate person I've ever had in this. What's that?
I said, I'm just getting fired up. How long do we have? Another hour and a half or so?
Oh, yeah. This is great. I'll just ask you a question. Then I go to get the oil change in my car, come back, ask another. No. Yeah. So it seems like a lot of information. And I think my listeners are probably, some of them are thinking like, okay, this, like you're saying, it's too good to be true. Yeah. So you build this whole life insurance policy, a life insurance policy, but you're saying that what we know as this whole life insurance policy is like, let me think of a good analogy here. I have I'm trying to think of something. I have a knife and we've been using it to only cut meat. And you're like, actually, you can actually frost a wedding cake with that. And it's the same thing, but you're using it for something totally different. And you're saying if we learn how to frost these wedding cakes, and this analogy needs some work, I'll admit, frost some wedding cakes, we could make 10 to 100 times the same amount of money using the same strokes we're doing to cut apart meat. So that the tools is the same. You're using it with about the same amount of effort, but it's going to totally change the outcomes that we get here.
Yeah, exactly right. So the tools that we're using through this concept, through this policy, again, as I said earlier, it's not on trial. It's not being tested. Even if you go do some research and you look and see how Walt Disney built Disneyland. So back when he had this dream of Disneyland, he went to the bank and he said, hey, I want to build Disneyland. And guess what the bank told him? No, we're not going to give you money. We're not going to loan money. But guess what Walt Disney had? He had these cash value life policies, and that's what he used to start Disneyland. He collaterally borrowed from the policy, right, to fund Disneyland. Who knows if Disney World would even be here if it wasn't for him being able to borrow the money.
So real quick, when you're saying collaterally borrowed, just so people don't think that this is an impossibility. If I want to get a home equity line of credit, I'm borrowing against the equity in my home, and the home is the collateral. That's a collateralized borrowing.
Exactly right.
Okay.
So like, for example, let's say you own a house worth $500,000 and it's paid off. And so you go to the bank and you say, Mr. Banker, I need to borrow some money on this house. And the banker says, what's your collateral? Well, here's my house. And the banker says, 500 grand. I'll gladly loan you 300 grand or 400, whatever the number is, because if you don't pay the mortgage, what's the bank going to do? They're going to take your house. So can they lose? No, they can't lose because it's backed up by collateral. The same thing with the policy, Josh. You're guaranteed to die, pass, graduate, whichever word you want to use. So when the bank has your policy as collateral, it's not an if you die, it's a when. So when you die, there's a death benefit associated with that. Well, that death benefit would pay off any policy loan, and then all the additional money goes to the beneficiary tax-free. So that's why the insurance company can never, ever, ever lose when they loan you the money, because you're guaranteed to die. And the death benefit will always be greater than the loan availability. So they can never lose. But just to get back about like Walt Disney, this is how he started Disneyland. This is how Ray Kroc funded McDonald's. This is how he paid his salaries. This is how he started the mascot we know of as Ronald McDonald. If you're a sports fan, Go look up the University of Michigan. There was an article November of 2016. And I found the article by mistake. I was about to speak at a live event on this banking concept in Denver, Colorado. I got there a little early, so I was checking the sports scores on ESPN.com. I went to ESPN.com. This article comes up and it says the college football coach at the University of Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, was just made a top paid coach, like one of the top paid college football coaches in the country. And how did they pay him? They paid him through this whole life policy. Well, why did they do it that way? It was a win-win for both the coach and the University of Michigan, because now they're paying the salary and they're going to get all of the money back. They recycle and recapture and get all the money back. This is how a lady, her name is Doris Christopher, in the 1980s, from her Chicago home, she started this company called Pampered Chef. She couldn't get a loan for Pampered Chef. Guess what happened? I think it was in 2001 or 2003. I might have the years messed up. A guy named Buffett, Warren Buffett. You guys ever hear of him? Warren Buffett bought Pampered Chef for $1.5 billion with a B, dollars. Who the hell knows if Pampered Chef would even be around if Doris wasn't able to start it by borrowing from her policy? The last example I'll give you is our current president, Joe Biden. Whether you love him or you hate him, here's what Joe Biden said in an article back, I think it was 2007. I've got the article. If you want it, just, okay, text me or email me and I'll send it to you. But I think it was 2007, if I remember right. Joe Biden says he has no stocks, bonds. He has no, all right, he has no savings account. He builds his wealth inside of, at that time, he owned 6 whole life insurance policies in mutual companies that pay dividends, a company that I write business for. So here's the president of the United States that's been doing this for years, right? So it's not on trial. It's not being tested. I can give you many, many examples of the people that you know and you've heard about that have implemented this concept in their own life. But us, Josh, we have never been taught this. Our parents, our grandparents, our friends, our colleagues, and our coworkers, this isn't what they're doing. And your listeners are chiropractors. So in order for you to be successful in the chiropractic field, you have to think outside of the box. Because if you're not thinking outside of the box, you're probably a broke-ass chiropractor. Most of the ones I met are. So you got to be able to think outside of the box. And that's exactly what we're doing, is we're thinking outside of the box, and we are doing the things that people have been doing, the rich have been doing for over 200 plus years and on. So we're not going to reinvent anything. We're just going to continue to do exactly what they've been doing for 200 plus years.
All right. So I got to get a live read in at some point here and make sure that I'm advertising to build my wealth, dude, you know?
Absolutely.
But I'll do my live read, but I just want to kind of tease this question. There is no free lunch in nature, right? We know this. There is no free lunch. So again, when these concepts seem too good to be true, then I want to ask, what are the inherent risks or downsides or whatever? Because if the answer is there are none, I'm going to tell you right now, that's going to be a hard pill to swallow, right? Because I've never seen a situation where that exists, you know.
Yeah.
Just how you do things oftentimes will result in, but I need some informed consent here, Brent. I need informed consent. So while you're thinking about how to answer that, let me just real quick talk about improving patient communication, because that is something that affects every chiropractor, every physical therapist, every doctor, any capacity whatsoever. And improving patient communication results in people who actually complete their care. It results in higher patient satisfaction. It results in higher trust, which leads to more honest answers when we ask our patients important questions like, hey, do you have any numbness or tingling, or do you have any incontinence? So if you want to build your patient communication, then use the best tool for patient communication, which is Clinic Gym Connect. It is a text-based communication software, which is how your patients communicate with everyone already. So why not use that same method with them? If you're looking for more information, check out clinicgymconnect.com. Again, that's clinicgymconnect.com, or send me an email, josh@clinicgymhybrid, and we will get it answered. All right, Brent. So back to you. We have about 5 minutes to wrap up here, but what are the negatives? What are the downsides or possibilities of where this could go haywire?
Yeah. Well, the downside and the risk, it all lies in you, the client. Because see, nobody has ever lost money in a whole life insurance policy in a mutual company that pays dividends. It's never happened. Go look it up and research it. But if you decide to start this concept, and if you think you're only going to do it for a short time, like I always say less than 3 years. If you're going to do it for a short time, then you need to run fast and far away from this, because you will lose money. You will lose money if you're only going to do it short term.
Is that basic? Because it is like agriculture. I mean, I'm using that analogy, but like if you plant fruit trees for 3 and you say, hey, I'm only going to continue with this orchard if it produces fruit in 3 years, it's like, that's almost an impossibility. And all you're going to do is spend money on trees and tractors and digging and land and water and nothing.
Absolutely right. Right. So even like Nelson Nash said in his book, the best time to plant the acorn tree was when? Not today, but it was 25
years ago.
That was the best time to plant it, right? So yes. So the risk factor is you, right? However, okay. So the dollars that you put in the policy, you're going to be able to start borrowing a percentage of those dollars right away, immediately, within the first month, within the first 30 days. But if you quit early, and again, I say within the first 3 years, then you are not going to get back everything that you put into it. So the risk factor is you, and who do you know better than you, right? So as I said earlier, just out of all of my clients that have been with me a year or longer, so like the people have come back to start more. I've never had one client ever that's been with me for 2 years or longer that has ever quit. It's never happened. And when somebody does quit, it's only because you have a severe financial catastrophe or disaster in those first 2 years. And even if you have that, there's a lot of different ways to modify the policy. Now, you're probably thinking, well, Brent, how do you get paid? Well, you are never going to pay me a dime. You're never going to pay my company, the Money Multiplier, a dime. The way that I get paid is I get paid exactly like your car insurance guy or your homeowner's insurance guy gets paid, right? So I get paid a commission on the policy that you start. So for example, Josh, let's say you go to John Smith, the Allstate man, to buy car insurance. The check that you write is not to John Smith. You write the check to Allstate, and Allstate pays John Smith a commission. So the reason you want to use me and not the guy down the street that is in your town that could sell you a life insurance policy is because they don't understand how to design the policy this way. They don't understand how to design it. And if they did, they would have already told you about it. And even if they did understand how to design it, they're not going to structure it this way. Because in order to structure the policy where it has that high immediate cash value, that agent has to take a 60 to 90%, 60 to 90% cut in their commission, and they're not willing to do it. So that's why you have to have it structured exactly for this high immediate cash value. You're on mute.
Sorry. All right. So I'm like 60% into this and want to believe it, but I'm a skeptic. I'll fully admit it. So how do I get that ebook again? Tell me and my listeners. I want to read it and kind of put to bed some of the things I'm wondering about here.
Yeah, I'll tell you the best thing to do is just to email me, Brent, BRENT, at themoneymultiplier.com, and just say, hey, I was on the Dr. Josh podcast. Can I get my ebook? I'll not only send you the ebook, I'll send you the full recorded presentation, and I'll also send you all the downloadable attachments that go with it. and which will be on my website, www.themoneymultiplier.com. And if you have somebody that's just like, man, I got to send an email, but I can't send it right now, then I'm going to give you my texting number. Here's my texting number. You can text me. My texting number is area code 785-248-9637. So just text me and just say, can I get the ebook? I heard you on the Dr. Josh podcast or whatever, right, that they say that they know, and I'll send you that information. But just know this, I will not call you. I will not reach out to you unless you contact me first. I won't do it. I will not be spamming you. I'll not be sending, hey, would you like this? No, you have to make the contact with me first and just request me to send you the information. And I'll be happy to send you everything, anything. I'll send you plan designs, case studies, success stories, testimonials. Even if you want to go out to Google or YouTube and just Google my name or this guy's name, Chris Naugle, the guy that wrote the book with me, Naugle, Chris Naugle, just enter us in YouTube or Google, put my name in, put his name in. You will see a boatload of information out there. And if you don't get excited by that information that you see, then you really should check your pulse. Oh, wait, hang on. I'm talking to chiropractors. You probably have a subluxation between C1 and C2, right? Hard bone irritating a soft nerve between the atlas and the axis. But the thing that I teach here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is I teach you how to keep your money in motion and build and create wealth through your own debts and expenses that you already have. And I want you to look behind Josh's head. Oh, wait, no, this is audio. Well, anyway, he has this thing here behind his head, and it says, move well, move often. Move well, move often. Well, that's what we do every day is we keep the spine in motion, right? That's what we do as chiropractors is the mobility, because if it's not in mobility, the hard bone irritates the soft nerve, which is now causing a malfunction or a dysfunction or a dis-ease, whatever your like philosophical beliefs are on chiropractic, because that nerve supply is no longer getting to that, just to that, like, okay, that specific organ, like the heart, the lungs, or whatever. You know, I don't want to make this a chiropractic talk, but that's what we're doing. We're keeping things in motion. And we've been taught in the financial world to keep our money stagnant, to put our money away for years and years and years and let someone else control it and hope to get some more in the future. That crap isn't working.
We know that the secret to taking care of people is moving from passive to active modalities, right? They can start out with e-stim, but they need to end up doing exercise and lifting weights and resistance bands and things like that. And in that last bit, you kind of made me think, you know, getting active in other areas, maybe that's the thing. I think, Brent, the issue here, just that I keep getting this resistance is you have, you know, you've touched the edge of space, my friend. Like, you see what it's like, and therefore it doesn't seem crazy. And I think most people are going to struggle with that idea from like zero to liftoff of anything, right? And that's where I wonder if that resistance, which is why I'm glad that you can get the ebook, because I want to figure out that piece. Like, once you see some liftoff, it's going to become believable. But at the point, you know, before the Wright brothers actually flew, you know, you're looking at a bird going, there's no way that a human could ever do that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope people do download the book, and I really appreciate you offering it. Give out that texting number once again so people can text you if they want it.
Yep. The texting number is going to be area code 785-248-9637. And my email is Brent, BRENT, at themoneymultiplier.com. The @ sign and then THE, the word money, the word multiplier.com. Brent at themoneymultiplier.com.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Brent, I appreciate, if nothing else, man, you are one passionate mofo, dude. And it's awesome because so many people are just kind of humdrumming their way through life. So I hope people got a little stimulation and talking about this finance thing, because, you know, making money in business, I don't want to say it's hard, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and challenges should be rewarding. You know, if you run a marathon, it should be rewarding at the end of it. It's hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard. So we should be rewarded those things. And I think that you certainly are helping folks get rewarded. So on behalf of Dr. Brent Kesler, this is Dr. Josh Satterlee saying, go out there, maximize your license, and live the life you dream of. Thanks so much, Brent.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Josh. I appreciate everybody being on. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for checking out these videos. I hope they're useful. We'll cover things like rehab, exercise, business model, progressions, layout, everything else that helps you build a clinic. So if you're interested, you can click here, there, here, or anywhere to get more videos just like this. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you soon.